Welcome back to Virtual School Assembly. Today, our guest is Israel Mendoza. Israel is a marriage and family therapist and the owner of Sweet Love Consulting in Palm Springs, California. He has a master's degree in business management and counseling psychology. And then he has a bunch of these letter things, AMFT, ALPCC. It means he's a therapist and a counselor. He's also a doctoral student working on his doctorate in counseling psychology. So doing awesome things already, but even bigger ambitions moving forward. Israel, we're very excited to have you on the stage today. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. So today, with the whole changes that we have due to COVID, I thought, it's important to talk about, social connectedness and interpersonal relationships. That's one area where we're currently struggling because we no longer have that social, support system that we once had before COVID. So now, with the changes, we have to learn to adapt to the new normal, which, currently, we have to maintain distance about 6 feet apart for social distancing. Also, being able to acknowledge people. One thing that I've learned when I meet people, my automatically response is to give them my hand. But unfortunately, right now, we can't do that. So the best practice is, hey, I'm Israel, nice meeting you. So kind of keeping it safe. A lot of things that we can do is basically ensure that we stay connected with people. People that are connected tend to live longer, healthier lives, and you feel more supported. And during these times, we lack that. So things that we could do is obviously we have social media, we have Zoom, which we're using. We can call and text. We can actually use online forums. With online forums, it's a great way to connect with other people that have similar interests. So, for example, if you like jogging or hiking, maybe there's a forum that you can find and interact with people to stay connected. There's also quarantine chat, which you can use to stay connected, similar to Zoom. So these are ways that we can stay still connected with people. Also, this is like the perfect time to really get to connect with our own families, especially because everybody's busy, whether at school or at work. So we don't get to spend much time with our families. So this is like the great time to practice those social skills and improve our relationships with our families. And in doing so, that will also enhance your relationships with other people that you interact, which are friends, our coworkers, other peers that we interact with. And with this change, we have to learn to be able to communicate effectively, really expressing our feelings and emotions. That's going to be very important. And being honest with one another, sometimes we all need support. Sometimes, if I'm at work in the office, I'll go up to, one of my colleagues, hey, I start talking about my problems and vice versa. They know that if I'm not in the office, they can call me and we can, talk things and see how I can be of service. So those are ways that we can do to stay connected during these times. Along with staying connected, one thing that we're struggling is isolation. We're not able to do a lot of the stuff that we normally do before COVID. So now we have to learn to improvise with what we can do. Because the moment we don't do enough things, that's the moment our depression kicks in, our anxiety kicks in, we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. So doing activities that, what we call behavioral activation is basically identifying pleasurable activities that you enjoy doing. For example, I like working out. So in the morning, I'm up at 3:30, I'm at the park by 5 o'clock, I'm doing my jog, to kind of avoid, crowds, come home, have breakfast, get ready, go to work, make my phone calls, interact with people. I come home, then I normally start working on, school projects. I like to read. By the way, I have a great book for you guys. If you guys like to read, it's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Basically teaches us how to snap out of a little funk, especially we're struggling with depression and anxiety. And it focusing on the positives. The moment we, like I said, the more we do during these times, the better we'll feel about ourselves. One thing that I want to introduce to you guys is the downward spiral of cognitive behavioral therapy. And this kind of, I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but here, if we're not doing anything here, we start feeling depressed. The moment we take opposite action and we start doing small stuff, we feel better. Then we continue on, and then we end up being happy. And during these times is where you want to make sure that we're being active with the stuff that you like. There's games that you guys can play with one another, homework, perfect way to, learn technology during this time. Because we're in the future now. So it's going to be interesting to have that knowledge so that you're savvy. I mean, we have to help our parents during these times to navigate through technology. So you can, sharpen up your skills. You can watch YouTube videos, listen to music. If you like exercising, go on YouTube, put an exercise video, follow the prompts. Just identify the things that you enjoy doing the most that bring you joy so that you don't end up being depressed or anxious or feeling overwhelmed with the current situation, because that's going to be important in your overall well-being. Do any of you guys have any questions?
Well, I'm going to ask some questions for them. So you started by talking about the importance of connections, and even noted that there's now been a lot of research that has tied our relationships to long life, to our lifespan, and to quality of life. That if you have good relationships, you're more likely to live longer and happier lives, which is fantastic that we know that, but sometimes that's a challenging thing. You mentioned that perhaps the most important relationships that we focus on during COVID is our family relationships, because those are the people already closest to us. They're the ones that we'll have the longest relationships with. A lot of kids that are watching this are saying, well, I don't really like my family. I don't really like my brother and my sister or my parents. And so what would be your advice to them, knowing that those relationships are the most important? If kids don't get along and they're stuck at home right now for, days and months with people that they don't like, what can they be doing to improve those relationships?
Well, if you have family members that you don't get along with, I encourage you to, make it 1 hour a week to spend some quality time with the people that you might not have the best relationships, and make it about them, not about you. Do the stuff that they want to do. If you practice this for more than 21 days and it becomes a habit, then eventually you might not like spending, the first couple of times with, that sibling, but with time you'll learn to appreciate one another, and then eventually the relationship improves. It just takes, the effort of you giving them 1 hour of your time to do what they want to do. Yeah. And practice that for 21 days so it becomes a habit. Then little by little, listen to them, provide support when you can, and that's going to shift the relationship. And obviously being honest and learning to communicate with them effectively is going to be key too in building that relationship.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Now, you talked about the importance of, I can't remember what you called it, behavior or something.
But behavioral activation.
Activation. The idea is find new activities that you can get engaged in that are going to occupy your time, that will be positive things. Do you have any advice for kids on how to find those kinds of things? If a lot of kids will say, well, I love video games and I love watching TV, so I'm just going to do those all day long, all summer long. Maybe that's not the best idea. How can kids find new things to engage in and to take their time?
Well, things that you can do, obviously, if you have access to internet, you want to Google things that you can do, activities that you can do. There's a lot of work around the house. If you ask me, you can help your parents do the backyard. You can exercise back there. You can learn how to cook if you're old enough, and you can get in the kitchen. There's drawing, listening to music. Because if you ask me, I'm not a TV watcher, so To me, TV, um, it's depressing. And if I do watch TV, it's something, it has to be comedy or something that's going to lift my soul because I want to focus on the positive. Um, Learn to meditate is good. One thing, if you're older, and it could be for any age, at night, you can also play an 8 hours hypnosis at night. So when you go to sleep, uh, and you're listening to the hypnosis, it reprograms your subconscious mind. So when you wake up the next day, you feel much better and refreshed. I personally practice hypnosis during my sleep. So I'll put, YouTube videos, 8 hour hypnosis for if you want to feel more confident, you put 8 hour hypnosis for confidence building, and you play it at night while you're asleep. So it reprograms your mind. So when you wake up the next day, you feel like, hey, I'm like on top of the world and I can do this. So hypnosis has been very beneficial on my end. And like, again, I practice that every night. Other stuff, I like to journal. So in the morning, I learned that a lot of successful people like to journal either in the morning or at night. So basically, my journal consists of having gratitude. I list at least 4 to 5 things that I'm grateful for. And then I incorporate some of my prayers, in form of meditation. So I pray and I journal about it. And I do that at night and when I wake up. So it's already programming me, to have a good day the next day, whether you do it at night or in the morning. If you do it in the morning, then you're going to get a good start.
Yeah.
Just identifying the things that you probably think that are meaningless or not useful. There's a lot that we can do being at home. And you don't even have to spend a lot of money. We have the dollar store, the 99-cent store. You can get a lot of great products and get creative. So there's no limitation. The only limitation that we have is ourselves. We have to learn to adapt to the changes, accept the changes, and not fight them, but just kind of go with the flow and do the more that we can to stay safe and and maintain a healthy lifestyle so that you'll be stronger and you feel better about the current environments that we're in.
Right. So I'm going to give a testimonial to what you just said, because as you started talking about some of the things you could do, I could see some of my students in my mind rolling their eyes. Yeah, I'm going to work on yard work at home or help my parents. They don't want to do those kinds of things. But I've seen with my own children this spring and into the summer, as I've given them projects to do around the house, and as they've done a good job with those things, it has freed up time for me as their father, where I don't have to do all those things. So we've had more time to do fun things together. So if they want to go do really fun activities and outings, by them helping me, for example, my oldest son, he helped me with a bunch of projects in the yard. We threw up some cedar posts and put hammocks on them. So now he has hammocks to play on this summer. We built a fort together, but he did most of the work. I kind of supervised it. Well, those are done now. And so that frees up time where I don't have to spend the rest of the summer working on it. So our next project was we built an arcade machine together and we can play video games. We wouldn't have been able to do that, but he helped me out in these other areas. So now we're having fun together. Likewise, this morning, as I've been recording these videos, my older 2 children are doing summer camp for my younger 2 children. And they're teaching them, they made Jell-O this morning and rock candy. So they did a cooking class. They've done arts and crafts together. And it's not stuff that they would traditionally think is fun, but they're doing it to help out, to build the relationships, as you noted. And it also makes it more possible for me to do fun things with them. So tonight we can go do a fun thing as a family. So I totally am buying into what you're saying here, Israel. Great suggestions. The last thing I wanted to talk about, you showed that diagram with the negative spiral and the positive spiral.
Correct.
Now, obviously, we want the kids to be in the positive spiral because it will lead to more happiness and more fulfillment. However, when they're in that negative spiral, often they don't recognize that. It's
Correct.
happening, but they don't know that it's happening, so they don't know how to get out. Do you have any ideas or suggestions for how kids can recognize when they're in a downward spiral so that they can turn things around?
Okay. Yes. When you're on the downward spiral, basically you don't want to you don't want to associate with people. You always want to stay locked up. You don't want to no sort of interaction. You're okay being by yourself. And no matter what you do, you're never happy. So there's like a lack of pleasure, lack of interest, lack of motivation. So, a lot of people can sleep all day. So those are some of the things to look for. The moment you want to isolate, you want to do opposite of isolation is be more engaged, force yourself. You might not feel like you want to do stuff, but if you participate in any activity, then you start feeling a little better, and then you start improving, and then eventually you can snap out of the downward spiral, because it's not a good feeling to be there. And as adults, a lot of people experience depression, and I've struggled with depression in the past. So and I know how it feels, but I also know that what keeps me motivated and going. And you can identify when you're not feeling good, force yourself to do something. Talk to people, talk to your parents, to your friends. Um, find activities that you can do with your loved ones. That's going to be very important.
Mhm.
And you learn some, new traits like your kids.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I like your suggestions here because I think it is really hard for kids when they're spiraling downwards. They don't recognize it. But you've pointed out some of the warning signs. And I think a few of those in isolation might not necessarily be bad. So for example,
Sure.
I'm an introvert. I'm happy being by myself all the time. I love being by myself all the time. And just being by myself isn't necessarily a bad thing. But if I'm by myself all the time, not having social interaction, and I'm sad and depressed, then
Correct.
those things together, it says, okay, maybe I'm spiraling. So if you spend all your time alone playing games or watching television and you're not feeling happy, you're not feeling fulfilled,
Correct.
then you should be reaching out to others, looking to do new things, trying to communicate. So love your advice here, Israel. I think very appropriate for right now. Thank you for coming on the show today, sharing your expertise with us and giving us some good coping strategies for this time of change. A lot of people hate the title New Normal because it sounds like we live in this crazy world. But the reality is our world is different and we're having to adapt. We're having to change. And so I think your message for today is so appropriate. Thank you once again for spending this time with us. If kids want to connect with you or follow what you're doing, is there a place where they can find you online?
Online, I at the moment I don't do social media just because of privacy and
Yeah, no
working.
problem.
So, but you can if you have any questions, I'll send you my email. You can email me, and if you have any questions or the students, I can email you my email address, and then you can respond that way. And I know I'm messaging my number. So
perhaps the best thing we can do is if you have a question or a comment, you can use the discussion forum in this video, and then we'll get you connected. So that will totally work for you kids out there. Thank you, Israel, for being on the show today. Really appreciate your time.
all right, thank you.